Brad, looking back over the year, how do you assess the season?
I think overall it's been a positive. Obviously, to come away with some silverware is a positive, and to just get through the year is a positive, and I think the club should be really proud. But I'd have dealt with that as a playing group, as a coaching staff, and the whole club really is just making sure we've got a clean environment to come train and make sure we could get the games on and we've finished the season. So in that way, it's a success. Obviously, there's disappointments right there. Disappointing the way we finished. Whether we could have really pushed on and challenged for that win, the grand final win, is unknown. But I certainly feel we sold ourselves short in the last game against Catalan. So that's disappointing. Disappointing that we didn't have family and fans to enjoy the experience at Wembley with us. It's my first trophy, so it was a really great occasion, something I'm really proud of and really happy that I was involved in, and it was different, which I enjoyed. But yeah, still disappointing that there wasn't fans there, wasn't fans to come home to experience what we've achieved with us. So that's disappointing, but overall you've got to look at the year as a success and another year under the belt for this young squad that we've got into next year.
Looking back to sort of this time last year, you were in a tough position. You must take pride from how you've dealt with that.
Yeah, certainly. It's been obviously well spoken about between me and Rich, what went on. And yeah, I'm really proud about it, really proud of how it's turned out. The year I've had on the back of that, the success that we've had, my performance I'm really happy with. If anything, it's just highlighted the relationship that me and Rich have got, and a bit of negativity or a bit of constructive criticism isn't the end of the world, and that's what you need, and it's obviously hopefully made me into a better player, and just had similar meetings now, not as negative but things that I've done well and things that I need to work on, and that's what I'll be doing, and hopefully come back and improve like I've done this year, next year.
You've spoken about your feelings going into lockdown and your anxiety around that. When you think back now, how are you approaching that? How do you reflect on that?
Yeah, I think the lockdown, probably the first one wasn't as hard as what people would thought. It's something new, something exciting. I think it started to wear on people, or certainly started to wear on me towards the back end of it. But at first, like the Dogcast that we did, being back home with family, the weather was great. I think it was a morning walk with Dave Dwyer, my dad, he'd do his jobs, I'd train, and then we'd have a barbecue for tea and a bottle of wine. So that was something that I probably would never experience in my life again, and probably shouldn't have done. So that was great. But then it took its toll, and wanting to get back playing and training, and it made me realise when I did come back how fortunate I am to be around the group of people that I've got, doing a job that I love, even though that can get you down at certain times, the pressures of it. I don't really want to be rolling around in mud, it's December, I should be on holiday, but it made me realise and be grateful that I'm lucky. There's people out there who's losing jobs, probably doing a job that they don't want to do, and they'd go and do it anyway. I'm doing something that I love, and being around great people that I'd never meet, people like Conrad, Reece Martin, even Matt Pryor, who doesn't say much, but he's still a person that I would never ever be around. I'm from Wigan. So yeah, I'm really lucky to be in an environment where we get people with different cultures and different views and be around them every day.
Talk about that appreciation and then coming back in. How much did you enjoy those early few weeks of back into training, and then obviously that culminated in the Golden Point win over Huddersfield?
Yeah, it was, like you said, just to be back around the boys and be doing what we love was great. It was difficult, obviously, adapting to the rule changes, and I think we came back a bit underdone with the rule changes, but we soon adapted to them. We had a tough start, and I think the 1 point result against Huddersfield really masked where we was. The fact that we went down so far behind and then came back and won it, I think that masked that was a bit behind the 8 ball, and then the Wigan and Saints game really highlighted that, and I think we developed and we worked on that, and we adapted, and we came back, and we had a strong end to the season, but then the schedule came back and hurt us, which is no fault of no one else, it's just a situation we're in, but we're not naive, that did hurt us. Whether we could have dealt with that better or not, I don't know, but that's just that everyone's been in the same situation. They've had different problems thrown at them throughout the year, and whoever dealt with them over the year better will probably come out on top.
And then that brings us nicely to Wembley and the Challenge Cup win. What your memories leading up to the game and the game itself?
Yeah, it was shocked. I was really relaxed. most relaxed I'd ever probably been about a game. Yes, I was confident that we'd win, but not overconfident. I think it was just the fact that there was no fans. I think, and it was a bit underwhelming. Really, I thought it's Wembley, it's a Challenge Cup weekend, but it's not the same. But certainly, as soon as the ball kicked off, I was probably the most nervous I'd ever been. Obviously, sat on the bench watching, and as the game unfolded, the experience, like I said, the experience was great and something I'll never ever forget. And it probably let us enjoy it as a group of boys together. Obviously on the courts on the way home after the game in the changing rooms, probably give us the moments that we weren't distracted from families, fans, interviews and stuff like that. It was just raw. The boys had done something that meant so much to them and we could enjoy it together. That doesn't take the edge off the fact that I couldn't go up and see my family after the game, or they weren't a part of it, or take the edge off how good that game would have been in front of 60, 70,000 people in Wembley. But like I say, I'm really grateful for that experience. It's ticked a box. I've won something in my career, so that pressure's off. And if anything, just give me a bit of desire to go back and experience it, because it was good with 30 odd blokes and enjoying it. Imagine it with 60,000 people in the stadium and being able to go and enjoy it with your family for the weekend after.
You mentioned it earlier there. Is there frustration that the season didn't go on a bit longer in the playoffs?
There's frustration. I think there was a bit of relief after the game. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was like, this year's done now, like we were probably ready for it. But we certainly came back and we reviewed the game the week after, or sat back after the game and sat down. There was a lot of things that went against us that week. The COVID with Rich and the coaching staff, that didn't help us. The fact that Catalans had only played 12 games or 13 games throughout the year would have had a lasting effect, whereas we probably knocked 5 or 6 more games out. That's going to have an effect on your squad and the energy that we had, and I think we saw that Catalan came out firing and they had a lot more energy than us. It's not an excuse, that's just the way that it was. A couple of decisions in the game really hurt us from the referee. Really hurt us with 20 odd minutes left. They probably should have had someone removed from the field and they didn't, and we was on the ascendancy then. You'd probably think that we could turn that over. But all them are the reason why it is disappointing. But the overall opinion and feeling on that game is we give ourselves too much to do. Catalan were the best team on the night and they deserve to win. So yes, we should have been better. We should have beat Catalan, in my opinion, that night, but we wasn't. So yeah, it's disappointment that it ended short, but no qualms with how it happened, because we just wasn't on, and that was probably to what we'd been through, the Challenge Cup, the schedule, the COVID for 5 months. You mentally and emotionally wore out, and that's where the relief probably came to after the game. It's like, disappointing, but we can draw a line on this year now and hopefully improve and go a bit further next year.
And you personally talked about COVID there. Obviously, you'd suffered from COVID during the season. Just give us a bit of reflection on how that felt. At the time you got the positive result, and then that week when you were dealing with it. A bit like the lockdown. It was a bit like I wasn't really suffering. I had bad headaches, but the news, it was like, it was a bit of excitement really. To people were rallying around, messages, getting stuff dropped off for me, and it's like the unknown. I'm not sure what was going on. I was probably one of the first people to get it and it be public. So yeah, a bit of the unknown, and then towards the back of the isolation, I really struggled. Obviously, in lockdown, I was with family back home, and the weather was great. Whereas in this isolation, I was with family. I was on my own in the apartment, no weather. So it was really like being in 4 walls for 10 days. So I really struggled towards the back end of that. But probably worked out well for me, because I wasn't doing COVID tests after that then, because it's still in my system. So there's no nerves around the week before Wembley. I could just enjoy the week. Whereas a couple of the boys, they were nervous wrecks, which rightly so, worried about COVID tests and coming into contact with it and removing them from. And you've got to feel for Dan Sargentson, who was having a good couple of weeks up to it and missed out. So yeah, it worked at the right time for me probably. It did have an effect on my body and recovery and fitness levels. Yes, the COVID will have done that, and I struggled to recover from games and stuff, but also the 2 weeks sat down from training and the lifestyle that you live in, just sat around eating not what you normally eat, your diet, not your normal routine. That probably knocked me off guard a bit. Two weeks of that really set me back, and then into 5 games in 15 days.
like you said, you're not in a routine, you're just eating to get. So my body probably wasn't in the best shape for the back end of the year. Like I said, that's just circumstances, and it did have an effect. But you've just got to deal with that how I did, and I think I'm pretty proud of how I did deal with the back end of the year, and the efforts that I made. So yeah.
And just finally, reflecting on Dogcast, the phenomenon that was 2020, and how did you enjoy that 13 episodes you did in total? You must be pleased with how that all came together.
Yeah, just to get out of my comfort zone and do something that was totally different for me. I knew the content would be good. I didn't know exactly how it would go down. I wanted it to be more of a mindset thing and people how they got into the positions that they were in. But I wanted a balance with just seeing what the boys were like around each other. Not in this situation with a camera in front of you. I wanted to see what the boys were like, get some personalities out there, because I'm lucky enough to see them day in, day out. And I knew that would be great content for people who knew them but saw the normal cameras. I wanted to see the people behind the cameras, and hopefully we did a bit of that. But the thing that got me was the stories that I heard. I didn't know a lot of the stories, like Chev Walker and a few that Tony Smith brought out. There were stories that I didn't know, so I really enjoyed them listening to them myself. So overall, and again out of my comfort zone, interviewing the likes of Kev, Gary Everington, Rich, all my bosses. But to get in a position and do something that I didn't really feel quite comfortable and I was really nervous about. Barry McDermott, didn't have a relationship with Barry McDermott, but got on a phone call and had a 40-minute conversation with him about something personal, him losing his eye, me having a birthmark. So yeah, really enjoyed that, and the feedback was great as well. So I really enjoyed the fact that people were enjoying them, and it gave me a bit of purpose in a tough time.